Alright, so this is a video on radicals or square roots and how to do them. Just as a note, radicals are the generic term for these things here. Square root is the specific thing where if what is squared comes out. So like if I had the square root of 49, the square root of 49 would be 7. Yeah, it could be positive or negative 7, but let's worry about just the positives right now. Another way of thinking of this is that what was times in itself is what comes out. So what do I mean? Another way of thinking of 49 is 7 times 7. And the square root basically says, well, if there's two things times in each other, then one of those will come out. So the square root of 7 times 7 is just a 7. Like square root of 49 is 7. Or it works with variables too. Like if we have the square root of x squared, the square and the x squared, the square root and the x squared are opposites of each other and they cancel each other out, leaving just an x. Or if I was to rewrite this as x times x, the square root says, oh, there's two things times each other. Well, one of you can come out. What we're going to do today is go over a specific rule with square roots, and it kind of has to do with this. Up till now, you've just taken square roots of a number, and if you couldn't take a square root, you just stopped. Well, now we're going to see if we can keep going. Um, so the rule for today is a really bad R. So if I have the square root of A, and it's multiplying the square root of B, that is exactly the same as if I took the square root of A times B. So a rule for today, if we have a square root of something and we're timesing it that by another square root of something, well, we don't have to take these square roots individually. You can combine them inside the square root and then take the square root of it. Let's see if this works. So let's say I have the square root of 4 times the square root of 9. This rule tells me that if I have the square root of 4 times the square root of 9, that should be exactly the same as the square root of 4 times 9. 4 times 9 would be 36. Now let's see if this works out for real. Uh, over here, the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 9 is 3. So over here on the left, we have 2 times 3. Is that the same as the square root of 36, which is 6? Is this a true statement that the square root of 4, 2, the square root of 9, 3? If we times those together, it's the same as the square root of 36? Yes, it is. So it works. Two square roots together, multiplying, we can combine those as one. We can also go backwards. If we have one square root, we can break it up into two other square roots. And that's probably mostly what we're going to do today, is breaking stuff apart. So if you need to write this down or something, write it down because I'm going to clear it all off. Why is this going to help us? Well, what if I have something like this, the square root of 8? 8 doesn't have a square root. There's nothing there times by itself and makes 8. But let's see if we can simplify this. Let's see if we can extract something from this. I don't want to change this to a decimal too. That's too weird. So I'm going to go backwards. Can I break this up into, I don't know, two square roots where I could then take the actual square root of one of these things? So let me think here. 8 is the same as, how can I rewrite 8 as two things times in each other where I could take the square root of one of them? One way I could rewrite the square root of 8 is, isn't that the square root of 4 times the square root of 2? Right? If I took the square root of 4 times the square root of 2, it'd be the square root of 8. So I took this and I broke it up into this. Why would I want to do that? Well, it's because this thing actually exists. What is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. Do I know what the square root of 2 is? No, but there, I got some of it done. I figured out what part of the square root of 8 was, because the square root of 4 is 2. I don't know what the square root of 2 is, so I'm going to break 2 up into something? Maybe 1, but nobody cares about that. So this is it. The square root of 8 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. The square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2 square root of 2. The square root of 8 is the same as 2 times the square root of 2. We got the 2 from here. The square root of 8 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. The square root of 4 is 2. That's where this came from. That's the square root of the 4 part. Square root of 2, I still don't know what it is, so I'm just going to leave it. And this is how we can simplify square roots we don't know. All right, let's try a different one. Square root of 12. I can't take the square root of 12. There's nothing that multiplies to make 12. So again, let's break up 12 into 2 square roots where we could take the square root of one of these things. Yeah, I could pick 6 and 2, but you can't take the square root of 6 and 2. Let's pick numbers we can find the square root of. So 12 can also be written as 4 and 3. Why did I pick 4 and 3? Because the square root of 4 exists. Just like it did up here. The square root of 4 is 2. Do I know what the square root of 3 is? No. Can I break the 3 up into something? No. So this is it. The square root of 12 breaks up into 4 and 3. The square root of 4 is 2. So the square root of 12 is 2 times the square root of 3. All right, almost every number can be broken up like this. Let's do this. Square root of 200. There's a couple ways you can break this up. There's an easy way and a slightly longer way. Square root of 200. I'm going to break that up into two things where I could take the square root of one of them. One way we could do this is 102. We could also break this up into 25 and 8. All right, I'll do this first one just to see what we get. We'll get the exact same thing if we do 25 and 8. It's just more steps. This one, the square root of 100 is 10. Do I know the square root of 2? No, so it's just square root of 2. So 200 is 100 times 2. The square root of 100 is 10. Square root of 2, I don't know, so I'm just going to leave it. You could also break it up like this. I'll do this in green so we can see. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 8 is 8. I have a feeling I could break up 8. We did it way up here. The square root of 8 is the same as... Well, it's going to take a lot. So it's 5. The square root of 8 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. The square root of 4 is a 2. So what am I left with? I have a... Let's see if I can write it up here. There was a 5 in the front, times in a 2, that's the square root of 4, times in a square root of 2. So 5 times 2 is 10, square root of 2 is 2. It's the same thing we got here. Just took more work. And that's how you multiply, or that's how you simplify radicals. Break them up into two things where you can then take the square root of one of them. When you're done, you write it as the whole number multiplying the radical.